Things that bother you never bother me.
Vera speaks out.
Things that bother you never bother me. I feel happy and fine, ha-ha! Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Having got a lot, I don't need a lot, coffee's only a dime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Don't take it from me, I'm just as free as any daughter. I do what I like, just what I like, and how I love it.
News and views from Vancouver's West End with Vera Canuck.
Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Vera speaks out.
Isn't Ravel wonderful? Let's get on with things, shall we? Hello, I'm Vera Canuck, and you are listening to Vera Speaks Out. I'm here as usual with our friend Norman at the helm, with all his microphones and cables and things. And of course, we can't forget Cheddar, can we? He's such a talkative, dear little guy, aren't you, darling? I think Cheddar is particularly high this week because we're going to make popcorn. It's his favorite, isn't it, Cheddar? But first, I'd like to say a few things about revenge. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, which in modern English means get it off your chest. And when advice like that comes from such a distinguished authority, one really ought to give it due consideration. Take my friend Linda, for example. We call her Linda Louvre, because she thinks she knows everything there is to know about Impressionism, and because she has every catalogue from Christie's since 1847. What does she know? She burns me up. My only problem is that I don't know any more about Impressionists than she does, so she's always gotten away with it. Then one day she did her whole flat over. Linda has always been color-coordinated, even at the best of times. But this time she outdid herself. Her refrigerator was violet. Can you imagine? Well, it only took me 3 weeks after her gala night for me to strike a blow. I said to her, Linda, you've gained 10 pounds since you got that thing. I think it's the purple that's doing it to you. Linda's always had this thing for any kind of purple. Do you know it cost her $4,500 to do her whole place over again? I've always said it. Her Achilles' heel is that she just makes things too hard on herself. The idea of furies just about died off with the Greeks. It took the world almost 2,000 years to come up with a good practical alternative. I'm surprised sometimes when people say they just don't understand how Iago's mind operates in Shakespeare's Othello. It's only common sense to me. He was just a born troublemaker. Could anything be simpler or purer? He is the essence. I don't even remember if he dies in the end, but that doesn't matter to me. The point is that he was a master of rumor, innuendo, and other forms of mental cruelty. It doesn't surprise Vera in the least that these are talents he was not about to leak us the secret of. That type never gives any real tips on developing such trays for ourselves. Anyway, events speak for themselves, don't they? Won't you come along with me into our kitchen? Norman, can you make it with all your wires and cables and things? You know, it is occasions like this that I'm grateful that radio has its limitations.
It's not very flattering to think that all of Vancouver might be abuzz tomorrow, and the first thing on everyone's lips would be how terrible all those purple appliances look when Vera's basic color scheme for the kitchen is yellow. However, I just haven't gotten around to painting it yet. When I have, it'll look just like Linda's. There was method in my madness, you know. I really did need Linda's fridge. Mine broke when I forgot to defrost it for 7 months. They're very temperamental machines. Well, let's see if we can add some decorum to the proceedings. Put on your apron, Norman. I don't want any idle hands while I'm at work. Popcorn evangelist Orville Redenbecker has raised our consciousness and restored popcorn from that seedy image it had to its former glory. I think it might be timely to do a rethink, a fresh look at popcorn's preparation and serving. We begin by presetting our oven at maximum. For best results, I let the heat steep generously, even once the needle that points to your temperature is straining its little springs. For example, if it's a cool day, you should feel like stripping down to nothing when you've returned and just opened the kitchen door. As a matter of fact, I prefer usually to cook in the nude for this particular dish, or in a bikini, as I have done today, for when you're not alone. Now, even before doing the oven, we'd have prepared for our clarified butter and fled the room. We'll attend to that now. If our butter is cold from the fridge, chip about ½ pound into a metal funnel, or if it's room temperature, all the better. Just slap in your funnel the equivalent amount. There we go. Put the funnel over a beer bottle. I've found what I think is a wonderful new taste sensation when I discovered one day that I hadn't emptied my beer bottle entirely. So I usually leave about a ½ inch of beer on the bottom for something a little different. Your bottle and funnel go on top of the stove naturally until nature takes its course. My friend Linda has this weight problem, so when she's over and starts raving like a mad woman with those opinions of hers, I just set down a bowl of popcorn at that crucial time when you're so smashed you'd eat a side of beef raw if you were given one. Sometimes I can hardly keep a straight face. By 11 o'clock she has to leave, her girdles creaking so loud. Something else we'll have already done, by the way, is the cookie pan, not sheet. About 1/4 inch of corn oil, if you're a purist, or any vegetable oil will do. Now, though, you thrust the pan with the oil into the oven on the lowest shelf, close the oven door immediately, and flee the room again if you must. At the end of 5 minutes, if a black cloud is not pouring out of every nook and cranny of your oven, remove the tray swiftly, cover the bottom of your cookie pan with corn until you can't see the bottom for the seeds, and thrust it back into the same location as before in the oven. I must be cold-blooded. You look as if you weren't going to last the evening, Norman. Apart from the heat, the activity inside the oven can be distressing. The joy of this approach to gourmet popcorn is that your timing is flexible. No matter how long it is, within reason, that you take between putting the corn over the fire, the result is always the same. You should return to find your oven door budged open considerably. You can close the heat, but be careful when you open the oven door. I recommend jumbo-sized Glad garbage bags to catch the oversteam. And there you have it. Anything above the first shelf is fit to eat. Remember our clarified butter? That's what it is now, of course. At this point, we want to modify it slightly. But before I frighten you, I want to give you a little background as to why it is precisely that I like to include garlic in all my dishes wherever possible. About 6 years ago, I went to my doctor's for some very strange hot flashes I was experiencing. He had all sorts of reasons why I should be feeling the way I was, but I finally persuaded him that I had high blood pressure. Shortly after that, I found out from Reader's Digest that one of the best things you can do for your blood is to feed it garlic. And I can vouch for this, because very shortly after my hot flashes first struck, they disappeared overnight. With your garlic press, squeeze the essence of 8 or 9 cloves into your clarified butter. We've done the clarified butter, and shake up the contents. Now, pouring butter and salt. It seems to me it's like the better varieties of stone that my friend Grace sells. The range runs from something subtle, reflective for a wistful hour, to something that'll blast you right out of your chaise longue. Well, given the alternative, I'm afraid I'll always opt for the outrageous. Now we've buttered and salted our popcorn, you use a utility dispenser of salt, of course, serves 15 to 20 people. Norman is practically supine on the floor with the heat here, so I think we'll retire to the front room with our spoils. Norman, I wonder if you'd do the honors. It's over there on the liquor cabinet. Obviously, when you follow my recipe, it will be for a special occasion. Excellent for high tea. Norman, don't forget some ice cubes from the cooler there. It is usually recommended that you drink muscatel at room temperature, but I like to help the flavor along. It packs quite a wallop. At least it's a comfort that our friendship is founded on mutual trust, Norman. Why should I have to listen to types like Linda Louv? She's always throwing it up to me that she's married and I'm not. Ha! As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't count when your husband isn't actually living with you, not even if Ronald is only doing time at the Ocala Hilton for 3 to 6 months for some trivial sexual offense. Just because I lived with my old man Tom without the benefit of the wedding ring. He died of natural causes. The same cannot be said of Linda's first husband. Enough said? You have to keep friends like Linda in their place. I mean, she has class, but she touches you on your arm and it feels like a veil drawn over your skin, and you find out later it was a razor blade. Ravel is so relaxing, Norman. Don't you think so? Columbia Records came out with a disc on the Masterworks label called 100 of Classical Music's Greatest Hits. There are only 60 minutes to a commercial disc at best, so that means that the average excerpt had to have been 40 seconds or less. How I wish I'd bought that record when it first came out. Short and sweet. That's how I like things. That's as far as I like listening to the Ravel. Good night.
Vera Canuck is portrayed by Stephanie Brooks.
Just take it from me, I'm just as free as any daughter. I do what I like, just when I like, and how I love it. Oh, old and grey, I'll be right in my prime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Vera Speaks Out is produced for Vancouver Co-op Radio by Norman.
Oh!